Have you ever wanted to transfer your camera and the rest of your scene from Houdini into After Effects? Well, stay tuned and I'll show you how. Hi, my name is Kaze and welcome to another Right Brain tutorial. So in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to bring your camera and any other objects in your scene as far as the positions are concerned from Houdini into After Effects. Now if you're used to Cinema 4D, then this was a pretty straightforward thing to do because Maxon has always had a really close relationship with Adobe and they made the process very easy. Houdini requires an extra step or two, but it can be just as easy and just as powerful. So let's take a look on how to do it. I have this scene in Houdini, and in my scene I have a camera and I have this balloon, and the camera is actually kind of doing the motion here. The camera is pulling back, although the balloon has like some movement as well, some keyframes into the position. So what we have here is, this is my Houdini scene. You can kind of see like my camera here and the balloon. And what I did is I went ahead and created some nulls. And I positioned these nulls in parts of the balloon that I could see adding some additional elements into After Effects. So I placed a null here inside the basket. And this is where I would imagine I could put some passengers in here. And then there's two other nulls that are centered on the burners of the balloon. Okay? And what I've done is I have parented my nulls, one for the passengers, one for Fire 1, and one for Fire 2, to my balloon. Now, one of the things that you want to keep in mind is if you are positioning your nulls very carefully, you don't want to lose that position when you parented it. So in your nulls, before you actually kind of connect the null to the parent, make sure that you have this tick box checked in which says keep position when parenting, because obviously you don't want to lose the position of the null after you spent time putting it exactly where you wanted it. But once it's parented, if I scroll, you'll see that the nulls are moving exactly with my balloon, which is exactly what I want. Okay, great. So how do we bring this null position and my camera into After Effects, right? What we're going to do is, the first thing you want to do is open your browser and go to this website right here. It's called Orbolt.com, and you might have heard about Orbolt. You might have even gone onto it. What Orbolt is basically a market for people that are creating little add-ons for Houdini to sell it or give it away for free. And the amazing thing is that like some of the best tools on Orbolt are actually free. So definitely check it out and definitely feel free to explore all of the different tools that people have built that are offering or selling on Orbolt. In our particular case, the tool that we're looking for, it's called Houdini 2 AE, and in the search field, if I just type AE, it will pop up right away, Houdini 2 AE. So this is the add-on, and it's free. It's completely free, and Mr. Mohammed Osama is the guy that created it, and thank you very much, because this has come so handy in the past. You have no idea, and I hope that he keeps updating it. And what you want to do is you want to kind of click on the free download, and it's going to give you a couple of options, whether you want to download the HDA file manually or if you want to launch it directly into Houdini. Either way, what I like to do is actually after I purchase basically purchase the asset on Orbolt, I have this asset browser right here into Houdini where I can kind of download the various, all of the things that I've picked up on Orbolt will show up here. Okay, you might need to restart Houdini and then start it back up again so that you can kind of see this new HDA that it added. But basically, if I right-click and add a new node in my object, at my object level, I can once again just start typing AE, and it will pop up right here. And this node, you will see, is quite simply, it's just like, you don't have to connect it, basically. It lives on its own. So when you click on the node, on this Houdini to AE node, it just pops up this little button right here, and if you click on the button, it will pop up this window, and this is where the magic happens. So we want to configure a couple of things here. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to well, let's go into the settings first and foremost. You'll see in the settings that you have camera position with any sort of keyframed animation key position. You can kind of if you don't want to, for some reason, if you don't want to, for instance, export like the focus distance or something like that, you can uncheck these boxes. But in my case, I want to keep all that information going into After Effects. And then we have like some locator information, once again, position, rotation, scale, and opacity. And then it gives you this extra option to add a 2D layer. Now, personally, the way I work, I haven't yet found a use for this 2D layer. I think it can come in handy for certain situations. I have it unchecked just because I don't need it. You might, kind of want that extra 2D layer brought into After Effects from Houdini. It's up to you. But that's it. You can apply settings, and then let's move on to the main window, the main portion of this tool. So here, like the first thing is uniform scale, and what I like to do, because Houdini works in metric and a lot of other applications generally tend to default to like a smaller scale, it's possible that you can get into a situation where, depending on the size of your scene, that all of the values, all of the position values that are going to be brought into After Effects are too small, or just kind of like a little annoying to deal with, or in some cases like too big. So this is where you can kind of affect that. In this particular case, I'm just going to say that I want a uniform scale of 10. That's going to give me, a decent amount of like values. You can leave this to 1 as well. It really depends on how you like to work and what you want to see your values at, but it's not going to change anything about how the camera move or how your objects move into the scene, so don't worry about that. The next thing is asking for a file save location, and this is just going to bring up your Finder, and I can just kind of click here. I've already done this a couple of times. I'm just going to save this and call it tutorial. Tutorial. Here we go. So that's where it's going to save in this particular directory on my hard drive. And before you click export, however, we want to give it some additional information. So the first thing that it's asked for is the camera node. It wants to know what camera do we actually want to transfer into After Effects. In this particular case, I have this camera right here. It's called like a camera 3D. And I want to highlight it. And I'm just going to click this camera node button. And that's going to connect my camera that it's going to export to this particular camera that I've picked in my object network. The next thing that it's going to ask is any nodes that you want to bring into After Effects. And now keep in mind, this is not actual geometry that we're bringing in, we're just bringing in the position, right? And in this particular case, once again, yes, I want to bring in these 3 null positions that I've created in Houdini. So I'm just going to highlight all 3 of them, and then I'm going to pull this guy back up, and I'm just going to once again click Object Nodes, and that's going to connect my passengers, my Fire 1, and my Fire 2 nulls. Okay? So after done all this, we can just click Export, and it's going to take a couple of seconds. It's really fast. And it's just going to pop up this other window, and it says exported successfully, and we can click OK, and we can close this guy, and we are done with Houdini. Okay, so here we are in After Effects. I created a new project, and we want to bring in whatever the Houdini 2 AE plugin generated for us. So what it generated is actually this JSX file. You can see it right here. And what is a JSX file? This is not like an After Effects file. This is not a file that you can kind of open in After Effects directly. It's actually a script file. So the way you use it is in After Effects, under the File menu, you would go under Scripts and you would say Run the Script file. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to run the script file, and we're going to tell it to use this tutorial.jsx that we generated in Houdini. I'm going to click Open, and I'm gonna get like this stopwatch, or actually not a stopwatch, it's just like a wristwatch. It's gonna do some calculations, and it's gonna think about, you know, as it's kind of running the script in the background and kind of bringing all this information into After Effects. Okay, so here we are, and what happened is that after my script finished running, in my project files, it created a couple different things. It created like some solids, and it created this this actual sequence, which has the same name as my Houdini project. And if I double click on this, we can see, I'm going to put this on this side. So if we double click on it, we're going to see that it's actually it brought something in, right? So it brought in a camera, it brought in my passenger's 3D null and the position of the Fire 1 and Fire 2 nulls that I created in Houdini. So the next thing that I'm going to do is, into this session, I'm actually going to bring in, I did like a quick render. This is like an untextured render of what you saw in Houdini. I'm going to bring that into After Effects. Okay, so I imported my EXR sequence from Houdini. This is just like a quick test render. As I said, it's untextured, and we're going to bring that into my you know, my sequence here that I created in After Effects after we ran that was created after we ran the script. So how can we use the information that we brought it into After Effects? Well, let's do this just as a quick test, just to give you an idea of how powerful this can be. I'm going to create a solid, and I'm going to let's make it a red solid. Right now it's just like the same size as the composition. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to turn this solid into a 3D object. So I'm going to click on the little box 3D. The solid kind of gets offset onto the side because of the position of the camera, but it's there. It's there. So let's say that I want to put this solid where my well, let's stick it like to where like this one of these burner fires might be. Let's say the first one is like fire number 1, this guy right here. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to find the exact position in 3D space of this fire. So I'm just going to hit P, and it's going to give me like the 3D position on any given frame for this particular burner, right? That's what those numbers are. And I want to match those numbers to my red solid that I created. So I'm just going to hit position here as well, and I'm just going to literally copy these 3 values, minus 23.6, minus 67, and the most important one of them all is the Z space actually. So that's minus 676.6. There we go. So what I'm also going to do is I'm just going to rescale this down a little bit. Let's bring it down to 10%, even like 1%. How about that? Okay. And let's just kind of rotate it as well. I'm just going to rotate it in on the Z-axis, so it's going to be upright right here. So right now, the position of this red solid is exactly the same position as this Fire 1 3D null, that if you remember in Houdini was this guy right here. Okay, that's what that is. So what I've done is I brought in this solid, and I've put it in exactly the same position as the Fire 1 3D, and now if I wanted to move together with it, all I have to do is just parent it. So I'm just going to take the pick whip, and I'm just going to drag it to Fire 1 3D, and they are parented it. And now if I scroll back and forth, I should see that this solid, this red solid, is going to move along with my balloon, which it does. So this is perfect. This is exactly what I was expecting to see. It's updating, like the view updates a little bit slower, but if I just hit play, you'll see that it's sticking pretty well to my geometry, and that's great. That's exactly what I want to see. So what are we going to do now with it? We are going to basically place it where my red solid is. So let's do it. First thing I want to do is, just because I want to be able to see my balloon as well, I'm just going to change the compositing from normal to add, and that's going to bring in the rest of the stuff. I'm just going to turn off this red solid because we don't really need it. So once again, the first thing that we want to do with this footage is turn it into a 3D layer. So I'm just going to hit like the little cube icon in After Effects, and once again it's going to disappear, and the reason is because it's actually kind of shifted all the way to the right side of the screen and you can't really see it. And the reason why it does that is because Houdini's origin point is defaults at 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, or I'm sorry, yeah, that's the origin, is 0, 0, 0 for Houdini. And in After Effects, actually, that does not correspond to the center of your video frame, because once again, think about the fact that we're coming from a 3D environment and we are into a 2D environment in After Effects, or as Adobe likes to call it, 2.5D. But anyway, I can show you in another video how to offset your camera and objects to kind of bring them all a little bit more centered into your After Effects composition, but in this particular case, we're going to deal with it. So I made my fire a 2D fire, and I'm just going to position it, and once again I'm just going to copy these positions from the Fire 1 location. So in this particular case, it's minus 23.6, minus 68.8, and once again, like the really critical number here is this one, is minus 690.5. I'll show you why in a second. Okay, it brings in the position. It's actually right exactly at the null. The problem is that it's too big, so we need to scale this footage. So I'm just gonna hit the S key for scale, and once again I'm just gonna probably make it like 1%. Yeah, let's start there, like maybe like 2%. Can be a little bit larger. Okay, great. And I also want to rotate it, and so I'm just going to hit R for rotate. In this particular case, I need to actually kind of go this way, 90. Yeah, okay, great. So let's go. I'm going to hit P again because I'm going to reposition this guy because I want it to look like it's coming from one of those burners. And here's where I need to be careful because I don't want to affect the Z position. The Z space is actually exactly where you want it to be. You want it to live on the same plane as this burner, this component of the balloon. However, the X and the Y values you can change. So I can kind of slide this around here, and yeah, like the X is actually pretty good. Maybe I'll just kind of set it just a little bit. All right, let's do that. Let's see how that sits. Okay. So once I have my basic position of the fire, all I have to do is once again parent it from, take the Pickwick and parent it to my Fire 1 position. And once again, we should see that this guy should be sticking pretty well to the balloon. And I think it does, even though it's moving. It's a little harder to tell, but here, let me offset it a little bit later. Yeah, there you go. It's doing what it's supposed to be doing. Great. As a matter of fact, you know what? I'm going to bring it up a little bit. Go a little higher. About that. That sounds good. That looks good. Okay, great. So we have that, and however, we have a problem. The fire is overlapping over our balloon, so how do we get it to kind of sit behind this cloth, this cover here? The easiest way to do it is just like literally just kind of duplicate your EXR sequence, bring it above the fire, turn it off, and then toggle the mode here to where you have the track matte, and just kind of say that we want an alpha inverted matte, because actually we want everything but the balloon to show. So when I click that, the fire sits now nicely behind our little cloth, and if I hit play, we'll see that looks like the burners are firing. And of course I could kind of put a second flame on the second burner because I have that null here as well. And in addition to that, if I want, I can just kind of click and duplicate these guys, and I can offset the second, like another flame. Let's say we can start here. So then now, like, I'm gonna have like a burst first time right here, and then another burst a little bit later when the balloon is floating away. And there it goes. And it should stick. And I mean, if I do it even a third time and bring this, I don't want to change my alpha channel, my little alpha source. I definitely want to keep it, but if I bring it all the way here, and there it goes. So you can see that our flame is sticking to the balloon because the position is tied to the null that we created in Houdini. So the sky is the limit when it comes to this kind of stuff, and you can do a lot of great things, and we haven't even really touched on adding some additional 3D elements into your scene in After Effects to enhance the scene further, such as if you have like a particle generator, if you have like a lens flare generator, you can kind of do all those kind of things. And as I said, what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to create some additional tutorials where I show some more advanced techniques of what you can do once you bring all this information from Houdini into After Effects. But for this one, this should give you a good starting point, and hopefully you found this useful. As I said, make sure to go check out the Orbolt web store, and it's just like a great resource, and it's got like all sorts of like really great add-ons. This Pyrojet exhaust is really cool, and torches and fractures and all these other stuff that Houdini users have created and have offered. And as I said, like in many cases, they are free, which is awesome. What else could you ask for? So anyway, I hope this helped you guys, and stay tuned. If you have any questions, post them below. Subscribe, tell your friends. I'm trying to like really grow this channel, and the more people we have, the cooler it's going to be, because then people are going to bring in like some new ideas and even better ways of doing things than the way I'm doing. So anyway, until next time, thank you for watching. My name is Kays, and this is Right Brain Tutorials.